في أكبر الكتب.
Congratulations, you have found the Lambcast, the official podcast of the large association of movie blogs, also known as the Lamb. The Lamb is the largest collective of online movie blogs and podcasts with 2,000 members and counting. Every week on the Lambcast, various members of the Lamb community get together to talk about our favorite subject, movies. So bookmark the Lamb and follow us on social media. Be sure to join us each week to hear a lively discussion of films and movie-related talk from our members. Join the flock at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 774 of the Lambcast. I'm Richard Kirkham, the host and shepherd of the Lamb site. Welcome to the June edition of Movie of the Month. We have a very different kind of film this month. It was championed by one of our longtime Lambs, and as far as I can tell, it's her first victory in the Movie of the Month pool. She'll be hosting in just a couple of minutes, but let me introduce you to our other guest. He's not faster than a speeding bullet. He can't leap a tall building in a single bound, but he can watch a movie and be ready for a podcast in less than 24 hours. The Lamb's own version of Superman, Howard Casner from Pop Art. Welcome, Howard.
Glad to be here.
Our champion today is from Mad Lab Post, and she's a frequent guest here on the Lambcast. But as I said before, I think this is her first victory in a Movie of the Month poll, although she's participated in several. Nicole Ayers, welcome to the show and congratulations.
Thank you, Richard. So happy to be here, and thank you, Howard, for your quick turnaround.
Yeah, we lost one of our guests due to illness, and fortunately, it's one of my regulars on the Movie of the Month, Matthew. I think he's been a fixture on the Movie of the Month poll or the Movie of the Month shows for almost 2 years now, and this is maybe the second time he's missed. So I'm sorry that Matthew's not feeling well, but I'm glad that we have Howard here to join us for the discussion. Nicole's going to introduce the film and lead us through the discussion, and then we'll have an exit question that she created after we have a break. Okay, Nicole, take it away.
All righty. Thank you, Richard. So, today we are discussing a movie called Mr. and Pete. It came out many years ago. It's about a little boy named Mr. It's set in New York City. Sorry. New York City, and it's about a little boy named Mr. He's around like 13 years old or something like that, and he lives in the projects. And his mother is a lady of the night, if you will, and a drug addict. And his mother gets arrested at one point during a raid, and he is left to fend for himself during a very hot summer in New York City where there's a heat wave. And at one point, like the power goes off. He's also babysitting a younger boy named Pete, and they have to figure out how to survive and how to find food without any money whatsoever while he waits for his mother to, I guess, get out of jail. And during this time, however, he has high hopes for going to Beverly Hills to audition for a role to become a child actor and be like famous with his acting skills. And so I think that is kind of the gist of the movie. If I'm missing something, please do, Richard and Howard, feel free to add something, but that's kind of the gist of the movie. Can Mr. and Pete survive the summer? Can they survive this heat wave in New York City without any money and without any food?
Yeah, well, I think I would add a little bit. Your description is a basic plot outline, but we also are looking at a social situation where neither of these poor kids is in a good environment. Both of their mothers are drug users who are probably primarily financing their life through prostitution, and there's certainly neglect in the case of Mr.
Yes.
And it appears that there is abuse in the case of Pete. It's not a good scene at all, and the fact that the two are on their own might at first seem like it's a negative thing, but the fact that their mothers are not around is not necessarily the bigger problem. The bigger problem is that they just don't have any resources and have to struggle to get through those things. The absence of their mothers is, I think for most kids it would be pretty frightening, but Mr. seems to be used to this sort of thing, and Pete doesn't seem interested in what's going on with his mother at all. In fact, he avoids her at one point. So the relationships between the kids and their mom, I think, is another part of the story here that matters. And there's some other things to talk about, but I think otherwise you summarized it pretty well. Howard, is there anything that we missed?
I'm not sure if you said this, but their main goal is really not to get picked up by social services and put into the system, especially this one place that houses kids without parents or without parental supervision.
Yeah, no, you're right. That
I can't remember what they called the place.
Riverview.
Riverview, is it? Okay. Riverview, and it's I don't know if you call it a child services center. It's like a giant orphanage where the kids are housed, and it has a nasty reputation as being not a great place to be. And so you're right, they are trying to avoid that. So they are avoiding the authorities. They're trying to get by, you know, basic survival mode as they're going through, worrying about shelter and food and those kinds of things, but also escaping being put into the system, which I think a lot of people recognize that child protective services systems are not the best thing in the world. Obviously, there's a problem if somebody needs those kinds of services, and some of the places that the kids go are, not the best. There are other kids there who might be abusive of them. Sometimes the adults are not particularly supportive. We don't really know that there are any of those kinds of problems that are going on at this particular place. We just know the kids don't want to be captured, and that's another one of those things that I think is going to be an important part of the story here. There's a theme here. Mr. wants to be independent. He wants to do things on his own. He is not comfortable asking for help. And there are a couple of opportunities where, maybe he could get a little bit more help, but he's very reticent to ask for any assistance. And it's only when he is desperate that he actually does begin to uh, reach out to some other people for assistance. And but he's a pretty responsible 13-year-old for a kid who has got the kinds of problems that he has in front of him.
Yes, and that is one of the reasons why I nominated this film. There are so many reasons. I watched it again this week to prepare for the podcast, and it was my second viewing. So I only saw this movie once, but it I saw it at a film festival that I went to provide press coverage, and I'm not much of a crier when I'm watching movies, and this the scene where he finally does ask for help, yet he's asking for help, in my opinion, from the wrong person. I started crying in the movie theater, and it was a packed theater. The director was there, George Tillman Jr. The cast was there. I have pictures. The guy that plays the guy that Mr. calls Dipstick, he was there, and I like I there were a lot of things that I didn't experience as a child, like with this movie. Shout out to my grandparents, not necessarily my parents, but um the my relationship with my father, for some odd reason, that last the scene, his second encounter with Anthony Mackie's character is when I started crying in the theater and had to like get myself together. um like I forced myself to like not cry. Like I talked to myself like, Nicole, we are not going to do this here. I have to be professional. And like if you don't deal with your shit, it really manifests in other ways, and in at the wrong time. And I Mr. I I never viewed, I'm looking at, when I watched the movie the first time in the theater, I'm looking at Jennifer Hudson's in a completely different kind of role that I'm used to seeing her in. And and I'm trying to gather my thoughts, pardon me. But
Well, while you're
I
thinking about it, let me point out that you are absolutely right. I didn't realize that that was her. I didn't realize she was in the movie when I was watching the movie. I hadn't looked at the cast list beforehand, and I thought she was really solid in the part. You know, you felt her sadness and desperation and degradation at what she was doing, but and her anger, she's angry at the world, and her son is part of that problem for her, and that's a tough thing to go through. And she's still a very nice looking woman despite the fact that she's living on the edge and a heroin addict. She's she's doing the best she can, but her attitude and I don't want to give too much away, but she does reappear in the film after being gone for a period of time, and that was a little bit of a surprise too for me.
Yeah, Richard, you just reminded me of a line in the movie where Mr. says to her, to his mom, I wish you would just die already. And she says, well, that's something like, well,
Something
at
we
least,
have in common.
yeah, at least
Makes
we
two
have
of
That
that
makes
us.
in
two of us.
common. And that was
Yeah.
like, wow, like, really? But I I think about, there's a movie called Lucky that I watched many years ago, where the it's about this lady in New York City again. Has a whole bunch of kids. Some of them are like taken away from her and they're homeless and whatnot. And as I was reading reviews about that movie after seeing it at the film festival, and again, like some of the people in the movie were at the festival, someone wrote a comment about why they didn't like it. I thought it was a very eye-opening movie, but they described the movie as poverty porn, and that term stuck with me. And when I see the kind of abuse that like Mr. experiences in this movie, I think about Precious and the like in how child abuse has like so many different forms, in the sense that he Mr. isn't getting like furniture or like electronics thrown at him in the movie. He's not being sexually abused or anything like that. But as you mentioned, Richard, like there is neglect in this movie, and that is a form of child abuse. And that's also why I nominated the movie. I work, among my many jobs, I work at an elementary school, and we just one of the districts that I work in, they just ended their school year. We're heading into the summer. And I always remembered when I was in like the fifth grade or the sixth grade, and one of the teachers, someone was like, I guess, bullying or bothering like a kid or something. And my science teacher, I believe, she said to us, sometimes, for some kids, school is the only peace that they get. And for you to take that away from them, that is not right at all. And that always stuck with me. And to be now working around kids, I overheard a conversation with among other staff members about a younger student who experienced homelessness and who's been starving or what have you. I had no idea like about this because he has such a big personality that and he looks good, so he looks like he's well taken care of. But also his mother has asked the school for help. He has, I guess, special needs or something, and she can't deal with him on her own, like at home. But we can't help her. Like that's a whole other service that she needs to pursue or something. But anyhow, so I one of the other reasons I nominated this movie was because like it's set in the summer, and when kids get out of school in the summer, some of the like we have no idea what they're dealing with or what they're going through. And so I want to try to keep that in mind during the school year when I'm interacting with children or what have you. And anyhow, so that's that.
Yeah, well,
But
look, we kind of filter things through our own perspectives and experiences, and we think of our own lives as kids when when it was summertime and you'd had the time off and it gave you a chance to be free and do what you wanted to do and go and hang with your friends or engage in activities that you didn't have time for the rest of the year. But you're right, for a lot of kids, the absence of structure is a potential problem. And in this particular case, it's obviously a disaster for the two kids,
yeah,
but the best part is that they're pretty resilient. They figure out how to do things. Look, Mr. When he's the start of the film, he's an angry kid. He has all kinds of problems at home. I understand that. He is failing the eighth grade. He's going to have to repeat the eighth grade, and it's breaking his heart. He actually kind of cries about the whole thing in private to himself in the bathroom, and he approaches his teacher, asks for a ride, and the teacher gives him a ride. And I think the teacher's right. The impression that he gets is that Mister's going to try and talk him into, not not failing him. And instead, the teacher offers him some help and assistance, and he points out that, we've tried to help you before, but you've kind of turned it down, and that's your prerogative. But this is the consequence of that. And there are ways that we can do this. And Mister cannot hear an offer of help and say, what, this is thank you, I appreciate that, or you're right, I should do something. Instead, he feels it's like an insult, and he reacts negatively to the teacher. The teacher kicks him out of the car after being, told off, and you just how is this angry kid going to be somebody that we become sympathetic with? And then
mhm.
we discover what his home life is like. And we discover the problems that he's facing and the dream that he has, that it's an impractical dream. But during the course of the film, we see a couple of good examples that suggest it may not be impractical at all. I'm not exactly sure that a 13-year-old should have been watching Fargo, but he, he saw it enough to memorize some of the scenes and play them back, and he certainly does a great job. He's no Steve Buscemi, but he's pretty impressive in some of those scenes where he's mimicking this kind of experience. And if I was casting a film for a child part, I would certainly consider somebody who is capable of getting at those emotions and conveying them that way, even if they are kind of negative emotions.
Yeah, and I'm I do find it interesting that his acting performances actually helped him out. Like he had to tap into it at the grocery store in one scene, and his audition, I guess, at the checkout counter led to him and Pete like being able to eat. And so I chuckled at that scene when he was like, and the Oscar goes to, but it seemed like Pete had no idea what he was talking
No,
about.
he didn't know what
Yeah,
an Oscar was.
not part
I,
of Pete's world. Pete,
yeah. Pete only knows about Will Smith, and the, Men in Black movie, I guess. I do like that, other movies were shown and referenced in this movie. I just lost my train of thought with regard to something else, but I I don't I think at first glance I like if I met Mr. on the street, I probably would not like him. But in watching on the whole movie, I felt bad for him and for Pete because they're minors and they were facing like circumstances that they did not create, like other adults created the circumstances for them. And it's it's interesting though what movies do because in real life I use public transportation often and there are a group of young boys actually who are running in and out of the subway taking things from different stations. They are a menace to society. And I've spoken to one of the train conductors at one point to ask him, like, where is the police? Like, where these look, they need to be off the street because they don't have supervision. Clearly, wherever their parents are, like, they're not raising them properly. These boys are a menace to society. And I want them gone. And so I don't condone certain behavior. And yet here with Pete, I think I mean sorry, Mr. In one scene I think he mentioned that he was planning to pay the guy at the store back when he like when he wins his audition or something in Beverly Hills. So it seemed like some of the things that he did were like things that he didn't want to do, but he felt like he had to do them or what have you. So that was kind of heartbreaking
yeah,
to
I tell you,
watch.
Mr. He gets tempted frequently to do the wrong thing, and he keeps trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
He can't pay, and he gets yelled at by the store owner, and he gets banned from the store. So he doesn't want to go back in the store. He says, I've been banned," and he tries to get help from somebody to go in and just buy a newspaper for him. And that
Hmm.
guy, by the way, we'll talk about that character, Dipstick. You know, what happens to him, I think, is probably some kind of poetic justice, although I'm not sure it's proportional in nature, but we'll see. Uh, but Mister didn't want to do any of those things, and he does when he grabs the paper, he still throws in the change. He's not stealing the
Yeah.
paper. And then later on, when he's copying some of the crooks who are robbing other apartments, he doesn't want to take anybody's stuff. He only wants to take food so that they can survive. And and ultimately, he recognizes that somebody else is struggling like him, and he's got a different idea because he can't get the benefit card to work. He recognizes what happened before. Then he gets the idea of maybe I can use my skills to. They fill up that grocery cart with the stuff that they need, and I'm not sure how confident he was that he was going to get that benefit card to work, but I think it was in his mind the whole time that I'm going to approach this differently. I'm going to work this angle a particular way, and I thought he did a good job of it. It's not malicious. He does take pride in the fact that he was able to pull a fast one on the guy working at the store, but it's you know he's doing it in the most non malicious way you can imagine, and that's what builds us some sympathy for him. That, of course, and the way he warmed, he was not a fan of Pete to begin with. Felt burdened by him, and they're not really friends. But he kind of becomes a caretaker and is concerned, and that's another characteristic of his character that makes me sympathize with him and hope for the best for him.
Yeah, and that makes me think of that scene when he drops Pete off, when he tries to drop Pete off at home, and Pete's mother isn't there, but the lady across the hall, she's there, so she used to babysit him or something, and she takes him in, and he could have just washed his hands,
Yeah.
you know. Pete's not his responsibility. And but I wasn't sure if he went back, because of what he's experiencing, or because he felt like he had to, take Pete with him. Um, but it some of the things, that scene and some of the other scenes, made me view Mister as like a child that doesn't get to be a child. Like he doesn't, it seems like he never gets to like just play.
Somebody should be taking care of him. He shouldn't have to be taking care of his mom or this other kid.
Yeah.
It's way too much pressure to put on him at that early age. But he is, the admirable thing is he steps up and does the best he can in the circumstances.
Yeah. I also like, even though this is a bad, I mean, this just, as you mentioned, Richard, like the scenery, this is all bad. And as I'm speaking, I want to thank my grandparents particularly for not having to I've never lived in the projects, like, so I only read about them. I did have like a classmate that lived in one, so I would visit her. I've been to one, but that was not my life. I've never, but I'm also not, like, my family's not rich or anything like that. So we had a lot of struggles, but looking back, I never had a problem with food, and or like thinking about like what am I going to eat, or something like that. But um I I liked that Mr. had someone that he could turn to, even though she was also doing, the girl Alice, played by Jordan Sparks. She wasn't necessarily living an ideal life either, but she could kind of help him with resources, um, sometimes, or what have you, in his time of need. So I I liked that element, like, of the film, even though he kind of, like, Mr. I guess he was attracted to her, so that's why he would like follow her around or something like that. But it worked out for him in at different times. So I liked that he had someone to turn to, even though they were not necessarily living the best life
Yeah,
themselves.
no, I appreciate that. Although eventually she disappoints him as well. Another,
Yeah,
older figure who promises that they're going to be there and then they aren't.
yeah.
Howard, I feel like we've been dominating the conversation. Have you got some insights that you want to make about any of the characters?
Well, I mean, I think the movie is a very solid, well-made movie. It falls into that category of kids who have to make it on their own. Um, the most successful, obviously, being Home Alone, but you have all these others like Steven Soderbergh's King of the Hill and Our Mother's House and Nobody Knows from Japan, and The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane with Jodie Foster. And, these are very interesting movies to see if kids can figure out a way to survive. It's very well acted. I mean, all these people show up, not just Jennifer Hudson, but you miss Jordan Sparks, and then you Anthony Mackie and Jeffrey Wright are also in it. I didn't recognize Anthony Mackie in that, you know, what they call lumberjack chic beard, and and Jeffrey Wright. I finally said, God, he's familiar. But if you watch it on Amazon, you sort of can click the thing and they show you who the actors are. And I said, oh, that's Jeffrey Wright. And then you also have Ethan Dazan, who later appears in the Spider-Man movies as one of Peter Parker's classmates. Um, yeah, at first it's a little hard to get involved with Mister because he is so angry and demands things instead of asks for things. I didn't really believe the teacher would give him a ride. If he did, that's stupid. He shouldn't. A teacher should never do anything like that. Uh, you can actually eventually probably get fired if a scandal arises out of it. So I never really bought that. I thought, what is this teacher doing? You never want to be alone with a kid like that. I was, in fact, afraid that Mister was going to try to say, if you don't pass me, I'm going to say that you tried something on me in the car, but they didn't go there. Um, the through line with the acting, I thought was a little odd because he's not going to get the part, or it would ruin the movie because it would be so unrealistic. But if he's not going to get the part, then what's the point? And in fact, at the very end, it turns out, oh, he's not really an actor. He's going to be a writer. So they had to put something in there. I think they wanted to have a ticking time bomb, so they wanted a date in there by which something would happen, even if it wasn't quite convincing or structurally sound. The idea of not wanting to go to the group home, I guess they didn't feel was enough. So instead of doing something with his writing, they come up with this idea of his auditioning, and I'm going, that just doesn't really work because we know the outcome. Even if he was allowed to audition, he wasn't going to get the point. And also, he shows up at this audition, and there's no other black kids there, and I'm going, what part is he even auditioning for? Um, so it just all seemed very odd. Um, but it's very well acted, and I thought it was very interesting that the projects here, they live in actually a really nice area of the projects. The kids aren't afraid to go out and play in the playground, even though there is some drug running and prostitution going around. They do seem to keep that to a great deal outside the projects. The homes, they're not first class, but his home is really actually rather nice, and they have has a PlayStation, they have a TV, and that's all very believable. Um, so I like that. I like that it wasn't. In many ways, it isn't poverty porn because though they're definitely lower class, they're not. Their circumstances could be a lot worse than it is, and it's only when they don't have that uh, the the money coming in, you know. And I did like the explanation of why the mother abandoned them. She didn't think she was. She thought they were going to be at this home the whole time.
Yeah,
But there's not really an in,
I was
huh?
just gonna say, yeah, the you know, people, this is kind of a spoiler, so we don't want to screw it up for anybody. If you are listening and you are thinking about watching the film and don't want anything spoiled, be careful about what's about to come up because Howard's mentioned something, and I think it's a point in the film that we need to kind of let people know. Mr. At one point, he's
Yeah.
expecting his mother back after a couple of weeks because that's the longest that she's been gone being arrested
Well, actually,
before.
just a few.
And
Yeah.
and maybe even less time than that. But she's gone for two
Yeah.
months, and he discovers at one point that she was released a month earlier, and suddenly he realizes she's not coming back. If she was going to come back, she'd have come back. And he thinks either he's been abandoned or that she's dead. He kind of feels like dead is what's likely to have happened, given the way she was when he last saw her, you know. In fact, there was one point where I thought that's what was going to happen, that she was going to be dead. Um,
I did too, but I think the explanation that they give here
yeah.
is pretty sound and
The
convincing. The
the
problem
follow-up, of course, is she assumes
is
that
there's
they're going to
no,
be taken care of in the group home.
yeah, but there's no real ending because there's no explanation as to how she's going to take care of Mister. There's no indication she has a job. She's off drugs, but what's she going to do to raise money? Um, I guess she'll still be on assistance, but that wasn't enough, or she wouldn't probably have. Well, I guess she did the prostitution to do the drugs more than anything else. So I guess she'll still be on assistance and have. I don't know what she has to pay for rent in the projects. It's a sliding scale,
You
I'm
can't solve
sure,
everything in
but
140
she
minutes.
yeah. But I'm saying they're giving the kid back to her, and I'm going, how is she going to take care of him? And so I'm not sure I actually believed that. I think it would have been harder for her to
Well, I tell you what,
give him
I
out.
have my former sister-in-law is a worker for Child Protective Services, and kids go back to unappealing
Yeah, that is true.
situations all the
Yeah,
time
they
because
just
it's just
they
that's kind of what the expectation is, that it's better for them to be in their family. And it usually is, but there are times when it's clear that they shouldn't be. You know, she's cleaned herself up a bit, and she does kind of have to justify to the caseworker what it is that she's, you know, how she sees things differently, and that she's made enough of an effort. And I wasn't even sure that the caseworker was going to approve returning Mr. to her
yeah,
uh, custody.
but also it does get rid of a person from social
Yeah,
services. It
it's,
does
you know,
help.
the resources are limited, and you want to make sure
So
that you know, use your resources where they're most necessary. Uh, I don't want to go too far off on this tangent. I did want to come back to something that you were talking about the audition. I didn't think of the audition as just being kind of a, you know, a time point in the film, although that's part of it. It's also about Mr. and his personality, his hopes. He has drive, he has ambition, he does want things, and he does work at those things, and that's what the audition's all about. He has a child's unexpected, you know, unreasonable optimism about his chances of getting both an audition and the job. I mean, he's convinced himself he's going to Beverly Hills. That's not a reasonable expectation, but he's a kid, and he thinks, I'm better. I'm good at this. I know I'm good at this because I watch me do it. He does the routine from Fargo for Pete, and then he does the performance at the grocery store. I think he's got a reason to feel pretty confident, but the rest of us know that that's ridiculous because there are hundreds and
yeah,
thousands of kids that do those kinds of things every day that don't get any opportunity. And when his mother's not there to vouch for him or sign anything, we know that that's never going to happen. He just doesn't kind of understand those things. I think the whole point of the audition is to not to give it a time kind of limit on things, but to motivate Mister. He's got to have something that motivates him, and this is the thing that motivates him. And I thought it was a good story point on that. Uh, I think the problem with Pete, poor Pete, he is willing to go along with anything.
and we never find out what happens to his mother.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I
what happens to Pete's mother?
we have no
We
idea.
just don't know.
No idea. And I think we're probably pretty happy that she doesn't come back into the picture. She looks like a real train wreck. Uh, we
Yeah.
only see her in one brief scene. She's not interacting with us. She's interacting with other people, and she's a complete disaster. And then we learn, you know, what has transpired with Pete in his life, and we go, yeah, this is not what we want. Pete's actually better off where he is.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Richard, with regards to the audition scene too. Pete's the reason, or it seemed like Pete was the reason that Mr. went to the audition in the first place. Because after, some time has passed and all of the different things that they've experienced during the summer while his mom was away, he kind of trashed that flyer that he or the postcard or what have you that he had for the audition. And then Pete uh you know un made he unfolded it or what have you, and even though he was sick, and he's still like, hey, let's go. And I looked at that as a moment where Mr. just gave up. Like he had no hope. Where he used to have hope, but now he doesn't. But Pete still has some hope, or at least believes in him enough to encourage him to go to this audition. And when I saw the movie, I thought that they went for a chance to kind of get out of the projects. Like if he won the audition, if he got the role, then they could have money, or then maybe they could have food or something like that. Even with no black people in the room, that scene wasn't necessarily for me. Maybe because I've worked in like the indie film scene, and I spent some time in like an art school. I've had like jobs where I'm like the only black person. I've been at Moore College of Art, and I'm like the only black person there. So I guess I've been like accustomed to that. So that scene didn't throw me
Well,
off.
Well, we
Uh,
never know. We never know
except
what
that
the
if
show
you're,
was that he was auditioning for.
Yeah, it was totally delusional.
yeah,
Like
and
like it's a delusional, like you said, Richard, he's a kid. Like he's not like this is not the scene, like for you or the role or whatever. Like this is not happening. But I guess he
but if there's an audition, they're going to list the parts and what they're looking for. And believe me, if they're looking for a 14-year-old black kid, that place is going to be filled with 14-year-old black kids. It's going to be filled with 12 to 18-year-old black kids trying to pass as 14, because that's just the way that works. Now, if there's no cast list, one, I would question the legitimacy of
Nicole.
that production company, but you have a call list and you have who and types of person that you're looking at it. And if you saw in there, it was mainly young women,
Yeah.
in their 20s, maybe younger. And that's pretty much what they were looking for. So I just thought it was odd he got this idea. I think the ending where they may have messed up, if they were going to go this route, is he ends up in his English class writing this paper which suggests that, oh, his real future is in writing, instead of him going to school and realizing there's a drama class at school and he needs to go there.
Yeah, the
Often
problem, I think the
when
problem here is that the drama class would be in the high school and he's being held back in the middle school.
it
And so
all
the English
depends,
class is the
because
one place he's going to
to,
get a chance to
today
express
the
himself.
well, actually, now there are drama classes at all levels, especially in New York. And it also does depend where they divide it up, because uh, it used to be it was 1 through 6, 7 through 9, 10 through 12. Now it's like 1 through 6 or 1 through 7 or something. And then,
Six,
it's
seven,
like
eight,
two schools instead of threes, depending on where you go. But it would probably have something there that for him to do. And I would have, if that's what he was, because in some ways it's understandable because it's from a child's point of view. But whenever I see a movie or a show, TV show about actors in New York and they're auditioning for movies, I go, these people have no idea what they're talking about, and I tend to turn it off. In New York, you don't audition for movies. You audition for commercials, you audition for a couple of soap operas, you audition for stage. Now, he's not going to know that. He just saw this and thinks, oh, I want to be an actor. And I can understand that. But in the end, that's his mistake that he needs to learn that that's not the way he's going to become an actor. And in fact, he has a much better chance of making inroads on the stage before he goes to movies if he's living
I
in New
do.
York, because he is
I,
talented. And I could
I
see
do want to
that
come back to
he could easily get
the
into
essay that he finishes with, where maybe he's going to be a writer instead. I'm not sure he's given up on his dream of acting. I think that the writing is his basically it's a different way that he gets to express himself, but he gets to express himself to the teacher that he was discouraged by. The teacher was not unsympathetic to him. He was actually trying to be encouraging to him, but he is the teacher that failed him. And this is, the teacher's asking the students on the first day back in school to write a one-page essay about what's going on, and he's got a plethora of things to write about. He's got a title for the
and it's
story,
more than one
and
page.
yeah, it's multiple pages,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a way of showing the teacher I'm not valueless. I can do this. See, and that's kind of the round, the circle coming back here at the end. I think that's kind of what was going on there, more than, giving him this optimism about his future. He seems to feel a lot more confident with his mother back in his life, and he knows that he can do these things. I'm hopeful basically for Mr. I not because he's going to get into acting, but because he's going to be realistic about what his chances are in the world now. And he knows that he's got to work on things himself, but he can also get help. Well, Nicole, do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I just want to thank my fifth graders who are now sixth graders who voted for this movie, Kason, Sean, Justin, and especially Justin because he actually was going to vote for another movie on the poll on the last
Oh.
just to be smart, like just to be smart. And I was like, please, like, don't do that. But I wanted to tell, I told him he had a right. Like, if you want, then okay. Like, I support you have a right to vote for any movie that you want to vote for. I will not stop you. But in the end, he still ended up voting for Mr. and Pete. So that is it. I want to thank the students at the school that I work at who voted for this movie.
Well, good. I'm glad that, when it got a few more votes and it took the lead, I said, "Oh, good for Nicole." And I was wondering, I thought she must have talked to somebody and encouraged them to go and vote, which is
I did,
exactly what we
yeah.
want. We want
Even
more
with
people
the
participating.
even with the franchise, and I lost that. I had coworkers at my other job, not even at this. I had coworkers voting for Bad Boys, and my physical therapist. I have an injury that I'm trying to recover from. He voted for Bad Boys, and I still lost. And one of my coworkers, she's actually a horror movie fan. She wanted to vote for Final Destination, and she still voted for that Bad Boys for me. But that's one of her favorite. Final Destination is like one of her favorite franchises.
Well, I hope she listened to the show or watched the video.
I'll tell her about it. I didn't tell her that it won, but I did tell my physical therapist, I think, that Bad Boys.
Well, we're always looking for more eyes and ears for the Lambcast. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break here to hear from a fellow Lamb Podcasting Network show, and then we'll be back for the exit questions of the week.
Hey, I'm Aaron,
And I'm Abe.
and together we host
Out Now with Aaron and Abe.
Hey, we pulled that off.
Hey,
This is a weekly review show, right? We talk about movies on a weekly basis.
and other things.
Yeah, we have commentary tracks. We have lots of guests.
A lot of bonus episodes, a lot of game talk, a lot of sports talk.
Yeah, somehow sports talk factors in there along with Simpsons references for whatever reason.
So give us a listen. We're everywhere podcasts are found.
Yeah, they're everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
Out now with Aaron and Abe.
Coming live.
Sometimes? I
And
think it's in there. I can edit that together.
We're back, and it's time for the exit question of the week. Nicole was in charge of the show today. She picked the film that we're talking about. She led the discussion, and I asked her if she could come up with some questions for the exit question. Nicole, you can use either or both because I've got answers for either or both of your questions.
Let's do both.
All right.
Let's do both.
Well, tell us what the questions are, and we'll answer them
Okay.
one at a time.
1 second. I need to pull them up. Um, the first question is there a movie that made you cry while watching it? If so, what was that movie?
I assume that the reason you asked that question is because this film that we just talked about had that effect on you.
Yes. That is this is one of very few movies. The Inevitable Defeat of Mr. and Pete is one of the few movies that made me cry while watching it. Another movie, I did start crying while talking about a football movie that was a documentary that I don't remember the name of during a Q&A with the director. That was a very awkward moment because that again came out of nowhere. But another movie that gets me emotional, especially when I first saw it, was $1 Million Baby. I wanted to see that when it came out. My boyfriend at the time did not want to see it, so I went by myself. Like, I'm still gonna go, like, I'm going to see this movie. And during that period, among a few other periods in my life, I was just really down and I did not want to live anymore. And that movie gave me some hope. And so that's like the only other movie that I think about
Well,
with regards to crying.
that was absolutely the first answer that I came up with.
Really?
Yes, I remember sitting there at the end of the movie with tears coming down my face. Now, look, I'll be
No
perfectly
way.
I'll be perfectly honest. I'm a marshmallow. I'm easily moved by things. I react to movies emotionally all the time. Stirring music, heroic deeds, sad outcomes for people or animals. That gets me every time, and even something that is admirable can provoke a response from me. I cried at a Jackie Chan movie one time, not because the story was sad, but because I was just so impressed with what a human being could do on screen. I'm watching Jackie Chan do something in Rumble in the Bronx, and I'm going, I, it's hard for me to believe this. It's like watching Fred Astaire dancing and seeing something so amazing, and I teared up at it in the movie theater. What an idiot I am! But $1 Million Baby, I that crushed me, you know, and
Wow,
that
who would
happened.
have thought that
And
we have the same?
oh yeah, no, that I think I heard plenty of people crying because I went when the movie was playing at opening weekends, that sort of in 2004, and uh, the audience was stunned at the end of the movie. A lot of people were very tearful. I know that that's true. Um, I'll give you another one that is not too long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The Art of Racing in the Rain, which is uh, about an animal that is so important to a man who is facing difficulties in his life,
Mhm.
and at the end, he has to say goodbye to his dog.
Oh.
Uh, I'm choking up talking about it. So that wasn't a hard one for me to answer. And apparently you've got a pretty good answer too. Howard, were you moved to cry at something during a movie?
I'll give three examples. Um, Might seem a little odd, but the first one is Life is
Oh
Beautiful,
my
the
God.
Roberto
Yep.
Benigni
Oh my God.
film. Well, I cried at a particular point. We all know what it's about. It's about this Jewish man who goes to the camps with his son, but he makes his son think this is all a big game and show put on for his son. So his son doesn't, his little boy doesn't realize what's really going on. And throughout the whole movie, the boy wants a tank. He wants a toy tank. That's sort of all he wants. And then, his father gets killed. And then at the end, a tank bursts through the walls of the concentration camp. And I said, "Oh, I know what's going to happen now." And yeah, the next scene is the little boy's up on the tank with the American soldier. And I went, he got his tank.
Yep.
And I just started crying because he got the one thing he wanted throughout the whole thing. And I just thought it was very clever. Another one was Junebug, which was Amy Adams' first Oscar nomination. It's about this man and his wife who go down to their small town in the South, and they go to this meeting at a church, and the husband is asked by the pastor to do a quartet with the other people like this guy used to do when he was in the church, though he's not really part of that right now. And he does it, and his wife is just astounded because she had no idea about this backdrop. But when they started singing, I started crying because it cut too close to home. That was my background. That was my bringing in the nostalgia. Got a bit too much for me. And then finally, Philadelphia. Even though I don't think Philadelphia is that good a movie, I think by the time I watched it, I was just so overwhelmed by the AIDS crisis.
Mhm.
And that at one point I did lose it.
Yeah, I think that was a very
So,
typical response as well. Well, Nicole, how about your second question?
Well, I got to tell you, this is a smooth transition into my second question because Howard's choice for movies that made you cry is my answer to my second question, which is when it comes to fathers or father figures, what male movie character do you think is the best or worst on-screen role model for small children? And that Italian movie, Life is Beautiful, that was my answer. That was the first thing that came, well, one of the things that came to mind when I think of the best fathers or father figures because of what the waiter went through to, shield his son from the horrors of the concentration camp. He did a lot, which is completely opposite of the worst father figures, if you will, in Mr. and Pete, in the inevitable defeat of Mr. and Pete, where I feel like Anthony Mackie, for me, was like a villain in this movie or a bad guy, even though he did try to do something nice for Mr. at one point towards in the third act. He could have done a lot more, and he was just completely careless. The police officer who gets kids and sends them to the child protective services does try to use encouraging words in one scene. However, he could have done a lot more. I think there are a lot of males in that movie that had an opportunity to to be role models for both Mr. and Pete, and they failed at that. And so that's all I have to say about that. I will say I was almost going to mention Gomez Adams only because I recently voted for him and Morticia in a poll about for the new Universal Studios park. It was like what's an epic duo for you? And it could be anything like peanut butter and jelly sandwich or whatever. So I voted for Morticia and Gomez Adams as that epic duo. So he was almost going to be my answer for the best father, but
Yeah, Howard, when it comes to father or father figures, have you got a male movie character that you think is the best or worst on-screen role model for small children?
Oh, I didn't think of worst, but best, I think I have chosen, of course, the one that anybody in their right mind chooses. And I think when it comes to polls, and that is, of course, Atticus
yes.
Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. You pretty much can't beat him as a father.
Oh, I think that's
Um,
a good choice, and that's an excellent choice.
and well, I think usually, if you have some sort of polling or voting, he usually gets father of all time. And then from the TV series The Waltons, I always thought uh, the father was in
Ralph
some
Waite,
ways
yeah.
kind of close, yeah, to my father. So the worst, oh gosh, I didn't think of that, so I will pass on that. But I know there are a lot of really bad fathers.
Don't worry about it. Bad father figures. Yeah, I just went for the good ones, but I did do two different places. I did for small children, but I also did for kids who are older, maybe in their teen years, for instance. So for the small kids, um, I thought of Carl in the movie Up. Uh, you know, he's kind of a cranky old man. He doesn't really like the kid that he's working with, but he does take care of him. He does support him. And he models what a person should be. You know, somebody who is committed and keeps their word and sticks to their promises and is willing to sacrifice. And I kind of like that. I also liked James Cromwell in Babe as Farmer Hodgett. You know, it's his grandkids that he interacts with in the film, and they are ungrateful little bastards. But he never shows any resentment about that. He's, maybe a small, frown of disappointment that his granddaughter doesn't care for the hard work that he put in to build that beautiful dollhouse for her. Uh, but he doesn't turn on her. He doesn't act like he's upset with her. He's kind of stoic about it. And I know that it's often suggested that stoicism is not necessarily a good characteristic. A lot of people would think of it as being somewhat toxic, but there are plenty of times when, swallowing your feelings for the benefit of the people around you is the right thing to do. And then a role model, I I don't know, maybe he's the best and the worst in this particular situation, is Clint Eastwood's character in Gran Torino, who who I think, look, he's got a history of not being a great guy, but he takes this other kid under his wing. He does the best he can to show him how to be a man. Uh, he tries to treat him, fairly the way he would treat anybody else. And okay, maybe he has.
Even though he
Yeah, no,
insults him
yeah,
along
yeah.
the
He does
way.
insult him
Like,
along the way, but it's the kind of insulting that parents do with their kids sometimes, that friends do with each other. There's that whole scene where he tries to explain, the barber and he are insulting each other. They're using ethnic slurs on one another, and they try to get the kid to play along, and he completely misses the whole point, about how it works. It's based on the relationship that you have, but he's trying to teach him those kinds of things, and I like that. And not all fathers can be nurturing and perfect. Sometimes they have to be, hard and good. And that's the kind of character that I think we have here.
I'll throw in a bad
Okay.
one. Um, it's a film that more people should see if they haven't. It's called The Stepfather, and it's basically about a guy who marries into a family and thinks that he has this ideal family. And when it doesn't turn out ideal, he kills them and goes on and marries into
Ooh.
another family and repeats the thing again, changes his identity. Um,
Yeah.
so I highly recommend that.
And one that just popped in my head as soon as you said that, it's not,
And the original, not the remake,
yeah,
the original.
with Terry O'Quinn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, this popped into my head as you were speaking about that and the negative experience there. Not not a serial killer, but Robert De Niro in a boy's life. And he's just trying to run the kid's life and mold him into something that he wants him to be, but it's not a good kind of molding, and he acts as if he's fatherly, but he's just destructive to him. Well,
Mm.
Nicole, I appreciate your championing the film. I had a good time talking about it. Howard, I want to thank you for joining us at the last minute. Yeah, and I'd like to give both of you a chance to promote anything that you would like us to see or watch or listen to. So let me start with Howard. I know that you're still working on pop art. Did you get that episode up that you were working on last time?
No, but I did finish editing it. So I'll mention the last two. The one with you for the Valentine's Day episode, um, which was music and lyrics, and once two films about songwriters who fall in love. And then with Jason Soto, it was The Man Who Knew Too Much and Foul Play, two movies about an innocent who gets involved in an assassination. And the one I just finished editing and will hopefully be up this week is with Andy Golding, Blueprint Review. And it is, don't tell me, I know what it is. It, it's the way my life's been lately. We did uh, uh, Parenthood and the Royal Tenenbaums. Two films about family, especially ones that have like three generations in them.
I like it. That fits in with our theme too. Nicole, do you have anything? Last time you promoted something, this film became movie of the month. Do you have something else that you'd like to promote?
I really would like to revamp my King Dong series on my blog. So I am accepting nominations. If anyone would like to nominate an actor or director or anyone for King Dong, feel free to just send me an email or fill out the contact form on my blog and do that. Previous King Dongs have been Johnny Depp, I believe, Denzel Washington, and some other folks. Those are the two that I can think of offhand. But basically, what I do is I take a man, a biologically born male, and I spend a month profiling them. So I might write a post about like life lessons we can learn from them. I might write another post about their career. I might write another post about reflecting on like a quote of theirs or something like that. So I basically just spend a month once a week focused on a man or have you.
Okay.
But
Well,
that's it.
I like that. I'll send you a couple of suggestions, I'm sure, and I hope our listeners will find things to people that they think you might find interesting and worth writing about for a month as well.
Cool beans.
And on my side, as usual, I'm behind. I have three or four films that I need to write the posts for. One that's done but needs to be edited. Three that need to be written. I'm going to be behind two more in just a couple of hours because I'm catching up with some films this week. It's summertime. We've got the Summer Classic Film Series going on at the Paramount Theater here in Austin, and I see a lot of old movies, so I have to catch up on those. I'll tell you what, though, this last week consumed me trying to get the video up for our Tom Cruise draft. And I would encourage everybody who is listening to watch the podcast instead of just listening to it, because the amount of work that it took me 4 days to get this done. And I'd like to think that somebody was actually looking at it occasionally. So that's where I'm going to leave it. And once again, I want to thank Nicole for bringing the inevitable defeat of Mr. and Pete to our attention and getting it to be Movie of the Month. And I want to thank Howard so much for joining us at the last minute. And let's all wish Matthew Simpson good health and hope that he's back with us next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
You've been listening to the Lambcast. If you have an idea for a show or would like to join us on the Lambcast, contact us at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Find us on Facebook, just search for Lambcast, or on X, formerly Twitter, at Lambcast. And you can find us on YouTube as well. The Lamb site can be found at largeassmovieblogs.com. We'd also love it if you would leave a review on iTunes.
Ha 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 ha